Welcome to episode 53 of Military Veterans Podcast, where we talk to veterans to learn about their stories and experiences. And today we're joined by Ian McKeachan. Did I get that right?
That's right, yeah.
Nice.
Spot on.
Even the surname?
You know, even the surname.
And the nickname?
And the nickname.
Nice one.
10 out of 10.
Thank you, Ian. Can I call you Ian or would you prefer
Ian's
Mac?
fine. Ian's fine.
Ian's fine? Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm more used to that nowadays. So.
Fantastic. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm fine. A bit jet lagged. Travelled down from the house yesterday, so for a wedding tomorrow. So
Fantastic.
I'm in the area.
Yeah, so we are down in Somerset.
Yeah.
I've set up in someone's house I know, and not done it before, but it just kind of like worked in regards to location, because like you say, you come down from Bonnie, Scotland, right?
Bonnie, Scotland. Scottish border, 60 miles the other side of the English border in a town called Gallish Hills.
Nice.
Moved
cool.
there after I left the Navy.
Brilliant stuff. Well, let's dive into those 4 questions to get going with your episode. But yeah, thanks so much for like letting this tie in. It's cool. I've not met you before, so it's like an exciting experience for me to learn more about you. So 4 questions. When did you join the military?
8th of July, 1975.
1975. So 8th of July. So next month, that's almost an anniversary.
Yeah.
What service and branch? And you did mention the Navy. So
yeah, Royal Navy by choice, Fleet Air Arm by ability, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Alleged ability.
And it'd be really good to hear about that and kind of how you got there later on. And then what rank did you get? How long did you serve for first?
16 years to the day.
16 years to the day. And then what rank did you get to?
Leading aircraft engineering mechanic, brackets, weapons, electrical.
That's why I was excited to hear your rank, because it's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
And we discussed before we recorded that it's equivalent to like a corporal, I guess, for the other arms. Fantastic. Okay. Well, Ian, let's rewind that clock. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Edinburgh, in a hospital in Edinburgh, but we lived on the southern coast of the Firth of Forth. Think Forth Road rail bridges, and you're on the southern coast, 20 miles east of Edinburgh, in a town, or a village, called Gullane. Gullane, and the E is silent.
Okay.
So everyone calls it Gullane.
Okay.
The beach is walking distance away. You know, it's a nice little village to grow up in.
Nice. And how long was you there for?
From birth up until I joined the military.
Oh, right up. Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty much most of your childhood.
Yeah.
And how was that for you? Was it quite enjoyable?
I suppose in them days you had to learn to fight your own battles. So you go to your dad, so-and-so's picking on me or doing this or that. And you'll just have to learn to fight your own battles, Ian. Oh, right. How am I going to do that then? Okay. Hide, and keep the distance away from the perpetrator, whoever it was that was just being nauseatingly whatever. So that was sort of primary school years, sometimes into secondary as well, but early day. I mean, on the whole, it was okay. It was fine. Lots of long summers, going to the beach, trying to learn to swim, not succeeding too well, things like that. So
Fair enough.
And lots of friends, football pitches, Gullane, the town centre itself, Liberty Centre itself, is surrounded by golf courses. There's about 5 within a couple of mile radius.
Okay.
So it's, secondary home of golf to St Andrews.
Yeah. So you were quite an active youngster then, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, you would play. I was never really any good at golf, to be honest, as a child, and I gave it up, sensibly. But just outside the primary school, there was an area of grass, and it had the old flag and the hole, so you could do what they call a pitch and putt. So you take a 5 or 7 iron, whack it towards the flag, and then putt around a little bit of green. And there was only a small number of them, half a dozen, maybe 9 or so, and you could just, going on a golf course, you had to pay, didn't have any money. If you had a few pence in your pocket, you were rich, you know, and you spent that on whatever, and you didn't go to the golf course. So tennis during the summer, football, 90% of the time football. I spent a lot of time recovering from various injuries due to the football. Some self-inflicted, others when somebody says, you're not scoring, and the leg goes out, and next thing you know, you're over the top. And then one time I did retaliate with a lad. He ended up on the floor. I gets up and I goes to swing my leg at him, and he stuck his foot up, and I kicked the bottom of his shoe with my ankle.
Oh.
So doctors, a couple of days of school.
Wow, yeah. Now, you mentioned you were there for your childhood until you joined the military. So what's the kind of mindset with joining the military? Did you have inspiration from family? Well,
my dad was an ex-petty officer cook during the Second World War. He never really talked about his service time. Little snippets would creep out now and again, but he never talked about his time. My elder brother has his medals. He got them when my dad passed away, and he retains them. And when I was doing my family tree, I found out when I got his service documents that we had one medal missing.
Oh, okay.
Which was 1939-45 war medal. So my brother applied for that. He says, well, as far as we're concerned, it was issued. If you can prove that it's been lost, stolen, and provide a report, we'll replace it. Ah, right, okay. So you're better off just ordering one on social media or a website that sells them. So he got a replacement, and we now have all 5 medals to an extent. But 4 are original.
Okay. So yeah, quite a lot of military within the family, not just father?
Yeah, father, grandfather, who served in 2 world wars, first and second.
Wow.
First, the Seaforth Highlanders, from 1911 onwards. And he, as I found out through the family tree, he was discharged in 1919 from the Seaforth on the 28th of February 1919 and joined the RAF the very next day.
Oh, wow.
And he was discharged due to wounds. And when growing up, they lived within 5 minutes sort of walk away from the main family house. Just down the road, turn left, and their bungalow was just on the corner. And memories are when he was sort of in his last years, quite old, but, bright as a button, very sort of lucid. My mother told me when I was young, ask him to show you the hole in his leg. And you imagine an actual hole, don't you? Just as a kid, you go, what? I wasn't brave enough to ask. But apparently he had a hole in his leg, and he also suffered a gunshot wound to his right arm. And then during the family tree history run, we found a cousin, and he had a picture of my granddad in military uniform with an RAF cap on. And on his left sleeve is 4 wound stripes.
Okay.
So he was wounded another 2 times. That remains a mystery. But he was a kind of a shrapnel bullet magnet, I don't know, but he survived.
Okay.
Obviously, to join the RAF, was about to retire, Second World War. So he stayed in and finally retired after 34 years service.
Wow.
So he was definitely an influence. My mother, crazy military. All things military. Go in, come out, and you can have a damn good pension and you don't have to work. Right, okay. So you're encouraged to get out of the house and go earn some money, That's maybe putting it harshly, but it's a good job, learn a trade, etc., etc. So this pointed me at quite a young age to think about yeah, and talking to my grand, I remember him. He says, "Oh yeah, it's a good life, sort of thing. We can't go far wrong, you know." I was heading towards the Navy like my father, but I did not have a clue as we grew up what I wanted to do as a trade, if you like.
Yeah.
No idea whatsoever.
So you knew the service that you wanted to join because of that influence, yeah?
The Royal Navy, but the Fleet Air Arm or working on helicopters never occurred to me at the time.
Right.
Probably more so when the brochure, I actually got a brochure when I was 15, and you open the brochure and you think, what can I do that? Can I do that?
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yeah.
Don't know if I can do that. That's a bit technical. Turn the page. No, do you want? No, don't want to do that. So you're back and forth. And my elder brother can take a tuppence worth of this because he was working quite locally at school, and he was working in a shop, and everyone in the family, apart from him, had thought, well, he's going to make a career of it, working in a shop manager, whatever, you know, area manager, you know, he's going to work his way up. And then all of a sudden, close to his chest, he says, well, I'm going to join up. And he joined the Fleet Air Arm.
Okay. So
that was the previous year to my entry. And I thought, hang on a minute. If he can do that, what can I do? So I started focusing on the Fleet Air Arm. And I thought, I can't be the same as him as a straight mechanic, a naval air mechanic. Aircraft, airframes and engines he goes into. And yeah, he spent 24 and a half years serving. So I think, what can I do? So this electrical mechanic air, that sounds all right. Can I work with electrics? Have I touched any electrics? Can I unwire a plug? Probably not. Can I change a fuse? Yes, change the fuse. Yeah, we'll give it a go. So that's what I chose.
Okay. And then what's the kind of joining up process for you back then? Was it a case of going into some careers office, or was it different back then?
Yeah, it was a trip to Edinburgh, Lothian Road Careers Office. It was separate then, Navy only. Walk in, see a guy behind the counter, can get some brochures, please. Want to make up my mind, I think, to joining the forces, joining the Navy. Don't know what I want to do yet. And I was 15. My brother went in the September, and my mother prompted me to go in. You're 15 now, you better go and see about it if you're going to be going in.
Yeah.
So I thought, right, okay, let's do that. So I took a day off school. My dad wrote me a letter the next day saying where I was, so that was fine. Took a trip up on the bus. I used to get travel sick on the longer journey to Edinburgh, 20 miles. So I would always have to have a travel sickness pill. Eventually I grew out of it in the early days, but luckily by 15 I'd grown out mostly a bit. Still a bit queasy at times, but I didn't have to take a pill. So I get to Edinburgh, take the brochures back, and then I applied to actually get a date. And they sent me a date. I went up, I passed the exam, which is multiple choice. Tick the box, tick the box, tick the box. And then I got to the medical, and he looked at my ears and says, right, that's it, can't do any more. Wax.
Really?
Yeah, ear wax. There's wax in there. He says, I'm a qualified doctor, I can do it, but I'm not allowed to. You have to go and have a hearing test. Right. So, appointment made to, I think, certainly one of the hospitals in Edinburgh. I can't remember which one, to be honest. But ear, nose and throat department goes up, ear syringed, wax taken out, had a hearing test, passed the hearing test. The doctor spoke to me and he says, you've had perforated eardrums in the past, but they've healed. He says, don't worry, I'll recommend you. So get out clause number 1, out the door. If I ever had, this is a get-out clause. Nah, that was out the window. So, right, not a hard one, but if there was a potential get-out clause, right, poor hearing. But they said, yeah, you're fine, go for it. So, I can't remember if I actually went back to the careers office again after that, after the successful hearing test, for sure. But I remember talking to the chief behind the counter or the desk, and why do you want to be an electrician? And you can say, I've done this or I've done that, and you tick the various boxes of what you've done. And I thought, do I really want to say something? And he goes, well, what's this? And you go, I don't know. It's very stupid. So I'd rather be ignorant than looking stupid. So I never ticked any boxes. And he says, you've not ticked any boxes. He says, but your test value's fine. He says, I'm quite happy. He says, you interviewed okay. He says, I'm quite happy to put you forward. So that was me. So I'm waiting for a date. And I'm still going to school. And my envelope arrives while I'm at school. And my mother, in her infinite wisdom, decided to open the letter. And she could see my face when she told me when I got home. I wasn't too impressed. Because you don't get many envelopes to open when you're a kid. Mm. And you know for sure it says HMS on it. It's your date. So I go, pull open the letter, open it up. And before I even actually opened the letter up, my mother told me the date I was joining. 8th of July, 1975. Right, that's your birthday, she says. And I says, yeah, I know that. So I was 16 on the day I joined.
Wow, okay.
Now, they say you can bin it for 2 years, up to 2 years. You can wait, you can bin the date, but you can wait up to 2 years to get another one. So what was the lesser of two evils? Picking the date or sitting around and being chased down the road to go and get a job or whatever. Or my mother said, well, you should have gone in when you had the chance, and reminding me, So it was maybe the lesser of two evils. I just accepted the date, signed the docket, sent it back.
Yeah.
And then it's, right, okay. The date starts to approach. You start thinking, well, better get my shit together. And I actually left school about a week, maybe 2 weeks. I can't actually remember how long, but before my dad wrote me a letter. You're about to go into, join in and all the rest of it. So I kind of lost my place. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So you got the date.
I got the date through. And then I got my crap together. Sorry, and I sort of resigned from being a pupil, and I went straight into the Navy as a scholar.
Yeah.
And I left the night before, Monday, the 7th of July, 75, and I arrived at Ganges, HMS Ganges, the training base at the time. The next day.
Okay. And where is that?
That was in Ipswich.
In Ipswich,
yeah,
okay.
In Suffolk.
Yeah.
Long since closed down. It actually closed the following year, 76.
Oh, really? So you were like some of the last to go through that?
We joined, I come down on the overnight sleeper. I don't remember getting virtually any sleep whatsoever.
Yeah.
We're in another total stranger guy. I'm in the top bunk, he's in the bottom bunk. You're trying to rattle along, and you've got all the train movement. We arrive and we're taken into a room, and there's not many guys there. So I'm assuming it was the train station, but the memory is a bit vague. And there's a petty officer standing there taking names, and he says, and he bollocks my name up, a pronunciation. And I just went, yeah, it's me. And he says, happy birthday.
Oh, nice.
And then he said, right, does anyone want to keep their hair? And no one wisely said, I want to keep my hair. He says, well, if you do, change your mind. He says, ask the barber nicely and he'll sweep it up and put it in a bag for you.
So was that day one?
That's day one.
Getting the hair off.
That's day one, yeah.
And so how long was do you call it basic training in the Navy?
Basic training, yeah.
So how long was that as a whole before you moved on from basic training?
6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah.
That's actually quite short.
Yeah.
That is quite short.
Yeah.
And any standout moments within that 6 weeks, bearing in mind you've had your life with your military kind of background from the family, and now this is you experiencing it yourself. So anything stand out from the 6 weeks?
Well, we get there. You're still in civvies. We're being walked to the mess to have lunch, and you get priority over the previous classes. So the previous week's classes are in this room, and there's a big L shape of guys, and they're all in blue trousers, naval blue trousers, as in uniform, and a white front. It's half blues, as they call it. So you've not got your uniform jacket on, but you've got a white front on, and you've got your bell-bottom trousers on. And they're all lined up. And as soon as you walk in, Laurel and Hardy gets whistled at you.
Already?
So the opening bars of Laurel and Hardy, etc. So he says, shut up, and tells them, well, the shut up of naval parlance is shitting it. So he tells them all to shitting it. And he says, next week, he says, you'll be doing exactly the same. He says, right, and go get your lunch. So you're marched out of there, come out of there. There's a lieutenant, I think, maybe a bit higher, lieutenant commander, comes and gives you a quick spiel. Welcome to the Navy. You're barking on your careers. Good luck. All the best. Give it 100%. So he goes away, and then it's a case of, right, go get your uniform. So getting my cap, and there's a guy on the other side, and he's looking at your head, and he's calculating what size of cap you need. So he goes, whack. 7.5, sorry. That's too big. 7. Nope, that's too small. Sits on the top of my head like, whatever. 7 1/8. He says, your head's weird. Because he had 3 goes, so my head was weird.
Okay.
You get all your kit, and then, of course, you spend the next 3 or 4 weeks learning how to iron it, wash it, clean it, set it up. I've got a picture of me at my brother's wedding. Now, the current uniform, jumping ahead slightly, the current uniform dates back to 1980. The style dates back many traditions, years back to Nelson's days, and probably before, of what is included. But the layout of the uniform changed in the 1980s. And it went from bell-bottom trousers to flares and a crease down the front and back, as normal trousers would be, from horizontal creases across the leg.
Wow, yeah.
So because I'm of short height, shall we say, I had 5 of these creases in my trousers. So they are what they were called a pay book width. It's about that wide.
4 fingers?
4 fingers, about that wide. But you have a green, what they call the pay book, and it's about that big sort of thing. And this is your marker for ironing in the creases. So turn the trousers inside out, fold the fly upwards, and put a leg, and then iron the crease that 4 fingers width, approximately. And then you invert it and do the same, and invert it and do the same, like that. So it's a concertina.
Okay.
And the last one is, so it's facing uppermost, so you've got 4 or 5 creases, or 7 if you're taller. Apparently they could go up to 9, but I never seen somebody that tall. So 5 and 7 is about the norm. You learn how to do these creases, and then you flip the trousers together, and you leave them sort of almost like flat, so it maintains the creases in place.
Wow.
So when you put the uniform on, the creases are still there, and they're still noticeable. Ironing white fronts. In 1980, the silk, as they called it, commemorating, if I remember rightly, to anyone out there, if I remember rightly, is to commemorate the death of Nelson. And it's integral to the new jacket. However, as is, the collar was still separate, but the silk itself, which made of silk, and you had to stretch it and wash it and stop it shrinking, and then you ironed it and folded it and then sewed it up so that it was, when you put it on, there was a little part as you tied a bow with tapes through almost like little bits of string, about that long, half an inch long, say, and you put a bit of black tape, fabric tape, so you cut butterflies in the end of the tape, and then you tie the bow, and then this little end piece of the silk fitted through that bow, so it was underneath, about that more. So you got the bow tie there, and then you got a part of the silk underneath. So you had to do all that.
Wow, there's a lot to it.
A lot of ins and outs of learning how to wash, iron, and then of course you're forever doing different things. You're wearing sports kit to go and get your passport photograph taken.
Yeah.
And then you've got to wash it afterwards. And you're told, yes, you shower every day regardless what you do. You don't think you're sweaty, you have a shower.
Yeah.
As far as I remember, there was only one guy sort of thought, nah, it's not for me, and left, but everyone else went on
Everyone carried on.
Whether we were the best of a bad lot or whether we were the best, we got chosen. One class gets chosen when we all came to pass out to get Captain's Guard, or it could be a visiting admiral, or even Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip would come, and so it's an Admiral's Guard that you end up doing. So you get white webbing, white gaiters, white belt, a rifle, SLR at the time, and you're spruced up to the eyeballs, shiny boots, all the rest of it, and you become the ceremonial guard to the captain or whoever's visiting at the time. So my passing out photograph is me with an SLR at attention.
Nice.
But in the background, we were also training with Iranian sailors.
Oh, really? Okay.
So Shah of Iran back then, and they were going through Ganges as basic training.
Yeah.
So they're in the background of this photograph.
Wow. So after you do basic training, is that the moment you head off to do your, I would call it your trade?
Yeah.
Is that the next step?
That would be the next step. There's one little sort of ditty back in basic training. We learnt to fire an SLR, self-loading rifle, 7.62, and we go on the range. And you do the various stances, prone, bang, 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 great, quite good. And then the gunnery instructor standing in front, and he's telling 7 or 8 of us what we're going to do next. And that is make the weapon safe, as in remove the magazine, eject the unspent cartridge because it's already loaded down the barrel. You eject that, you put it back in the magazine, you reload the magazine, and you stop there. And your weapon goes to safe, nothing can happen. If you do off the catch, you go click, nothing happens, nothing. So somewhere along the lines, I missed some of this. Inattentive schoolboy comes to mind. So I cock the weapon, and you cannot mistake cocking a weapon, can you?
No.
It's you hear it.
Yep.
You hear it a mile off. Click, click. So the next thing I know, I got a gunnery instructor who's just there, right in my face, grabbing my weapon off me and giving me hell. So he then turns and he goes, unloads the magazine into the target, and I get ceremoniously dumped out of the range. And what happened? I haven't a clue how it went wrong. But the penny should have dropped when he went to the other guys and says, right, off, safety catch, and fire a weapon. Click. Everyone went click. And what went wrong? And I'm trying to think what the hell went wrong. Now, in my defence, I wasn't paying attention, wasn't listening properly, and I'd missed what he'd said. Another guy did exactly the same in the next batch. So there was another bang, 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 as all the rounds are spent. So that's your chance of winning the trophy for the best shooting class out the window. So we then go on to the next training. I never make the same mistake ever again. I hasten to add. But that is memory that stuck with me all these years.
Yeah. So the rest of your career, never did that again.
You don't make the same mistake again. You listen and you observe and right, okay. I was just then I missed out. You put your wrist into save and you will cock the weapon, and he went right the way through. And I don't know whether it was to try and catch anyone who's listening, who's not. And as I say, 7 other guys, all quite the thing. And then you click, and I'm going. He went bang, and just emptied the magazine. And I'm going, what the hell? And it took a while for the penny to drop. It should have dropped when they all went click. I thought, why does he go click? And what's he on about? Because he's screaming at me, rightly, because I am a danger to everyone in there. They said if you ever point a weapon at one of the gunnery instructors and he removes it from you and beats you around the head with it, he doesn't know if it's loaded or not. If he's got a magazine there, what's in it? He doesn't know. So if he attacks you, that's your own fault.
Yeah.
So,
well, like you say, learn from your mistakes.
Yeah,
so
I learned.
As you did.
We fired one again in the next training, and we fired a submachine gun as well.
Yeah.
No mistakes.
Nice.
Learnt my lesson. Lesson learnt.
Yeah. And then you, like you say, you go on to your next part of training, which is your trade.
Yeah.
So whereabouts is that being held?
That is in Lee-on-Solent in Hampshire.
In Hampshire, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And how long's that? Can you remember roughly?
That started on the 8th of September, 1975.
Okay.
So 6 weeks later. 8 weeks later, sorry, because we had 2 weeks holidays in between leaving Ganges to...
And then how long was that training for?
4 months.
4 months, okay. When you started doing that, bearing in mind you didn't really know what you were going to go into and you were just kind of guessing, what can you maybe outclass your brother with? I don't know. What did you think when you got there and you were starting to do that course?
I hated discussed earlier, I hated the camp. The place was called HMS Daedalus. It got corrupted to Daedalus.
Okay.
Anyone that hates it, we'll call it Daedalus. Anyone that loves it, lived in the area, say, lived at Portsmouth, Gosport, they would love it because they can get home, straight home.
Yeah.
You're going, what the hell? What's this place like? I hated it and I struggled. Not so much with the academics of learning how to work on aircraft. Not everything went 100% according to plan, shall we say. Because you do various written tests, you do various practical tests about learn how to work on aircraft. So most of it was classroom work, and then down the stairs there was a hangar with lots and lots of Wessex helicopters in. So that was your mainstay training guide. So they would take you on and teach you what you needed to learn of your particular trade. Now, when you start off, no one is anything other than a basic electrical mechanic, brackets air. When they get to a certain point in your training, they decide, right, who wants to do what? So you've got 3 trades to pick from: basic electrics, radio mechanic, or a weapons bomb head, or bomb head, as they call them. So weapons, guns, bombs, anything like that. So you got the 3 different trades, and everyone selected which ones they wanted. And I think it was about 15 of us, and about 5 each time, picked a different trade. So I picked straight electrics, and you get a new badge to sew on your arm. That's 4 electrical flashes on it, 4 lightning flashes if you like, and there's a little L, not E, because that might be confusing.
Okay.
And this, as I remember, there's a reason given that you have an L for electrical rather than E for electrical. But it means the same. You're still an electrician to basics. So they then sort of split to a certain extent, and you each learn more about your individual trades as you go along. So as the months progress, you're looking to increase your knowledge of that particular trade involved. You do various practical tests as well. We did lots of soldering, because the Wessex 5 or the Wessex entire was all soldered connections through plugs and sockets and things like that. There's little termination ends, little end terminations that you would get at times, but majority was soldering. So you had to learn how to solder, for instance. And then you make not a circuit board, as you might think, like transistors and other things, but a wiring board. So it's best guess is a couple of foot square, and you make various connections to this wiring loom as you're making, and you solder every connection. So every connection that starts at one end so you use test equipment from one end to the other to make sure that it gets to the right space. So you might have a plug with 10 connections in it. That one has got to correspond to the other end, so it makes that proper circuit. So when you go dink on position 1 or A or whatever it's like numbered at, and you go other end, so that has to be correctly identified. And back in the day, that was putting a yellow sleeve, a numbered or lettered sleeve, actually on the cable before you soldered it. So you get guys going, oh, bollocks, I missed the sleeve off, or some sleeves dropped off. So you have to undo it and then put the sleeve back on, resolder it. So all them connections got to be right. I had a practical where they go fault finding. And that didn't go too well, I must admit. And for the purpose of the exercise, you are assessing that a hoist light doesn't work. And for the purposes of the exercise, the hoist filament itself, as in the light bulb, is working. You know that. You're told that. But you've got to go through all the practical bits and pieces of putting the defect in the aircraft's log. So there's to write the hoist light fails to operate. Hoist light does not work, whatever. And then you've got to clear that entry. So you've got to do all the work involved, signing out equipment, using the correct tools, testing the fuse, because it's a fuse that's needing replacing. The instructor will go into his pocket, come out with a fuse, you test it. Sorry, that doesn't work. Comes out with another fuse, you go, no, that's the wrong rating. I need a 15 amp, 10 amp, whatever. Back in his pocket. Hang on a minute, I've got one somewhere. Rakes in his pocket, gives you another one. Test it, yeah, that works, okay. Fit it, click the light on, light works. Where you go. Happy as Larry. The exam went splendidly. Absolutely. But the prelim, that's when you make your mistakes. So I made virtually every single one you could make.
Well, that's the point of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, as I meant, the instructor was quite worried, because he come to me after I'd been in and out again. And he's, how'd it go, Mac? How'd it go? Fine. That's all I could, shrug my shoulder. It was fine, it's fine. He was quite worried that it would come back to him that he hadn't instructed me properly. It was just one of those days where you get up and you think, I'm half asleep, and you're not, but you get to the thing and you just forget what to do next. You don't do it in the sequence, and you go, no, hang on a minute, you didn't use a tally there, because you had a metal, everything on an aircraft has to be logged. And I'm going to introduce a little bit of terminology. Every naval aircraft in the fleet of RAM is called a cab. It's a shortened, you don't call it an aircraft, you call it a cab.
Okay.
So whether it's a jet, whether it's a helicopter, it's a cab. So you get to know that every aircraft is a cab, and that's how you demark it.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So we get out of Daedalus. I don't want to see it again. I thought 4 months is enough. I've had enough. I don't want to come back here in a hurry. But it's where you do the next part of your training. So every time you have to do training, you end up back there. You're on a bungee cord.
Yeah.
Every bit of training, back to Daedalus again.
Yeah.
So, back on the train journey at that time. I wasn't driving, so back on the train, into Daedalus. Where are you going? Oh, such and such. What are you here for? Oh, such and such, right. There's your, there's your joining routine. You got to go around joining everywhere, telling everyone you're here. They're going to charge you food and accommodation, all the rest of it. You get your bunk, and you think, oh, hell, I've got to put up with this for 2 weeks, 3 days, whatever it was long.
Yeah.
And I hated every time I had to go back,
Yeah, we had that at Leconfield to do all driver training and stuff. So, yeah, I know that feeling for sure. So where do you go after all of this training? So obviously you've done the training for a period of time. And then being Navy, do you actually go to a location, or can you be assigned to a ship? Like, which one do you go to?
Normally, I would say you are to an air station.
Could you
go to a ship directly? Potentially.
Okay, you could. Okay.
But they normally like you to go to a training squadron to actually learn your trade on hands-on experience.
Right. Yeah.
So I went to Yeovilton.
Oh, straight from
Daedalus after 26th of January 1976. I end up there.
Okay. What do you think of that? Because it's quite large, isn't it?
Yeah. Bit devastated when anybody junior, he says, anybody under 17 and a half. So I'm separated immediately from the 3 or 4 guys that join me out of our class with our different trades, but we all pass out together in the same class. So they get other accommodation. I end up in the juniors division, as it's called.
Okay.
So under 17 and a half. And I stay there for a year.
Right.
So I don't get out of the place very quickly.
Still doing your trade, though?
Still doing my trade.
Okay, good.
But I was a bit peeved that I couldn't stay with the guys, because up until then, you're all in the same mess deck. So you get to know guys and you get to know what they're like. So it's a case of you got to try and make new friends, meet people, and we're all different trades. So there's general service, there's cooks, there's stewards, there's writers, there's all sorts of trades in this fleet of RAM. And there's a bit of banter between all the trades and all the workings. So, oh, you only scrub hangers, you only sweep brangers, you only do this, you only push pens, etc., etc.
And how long are you at Yeovilton for?
I spent until 1982, late 82.
Okay, so what's that, 6 years?
6 years.
6 years,
6
wow.
years, yeah.
Okay, is that quite common to be in a location for that length of time?
Yeah, it depends. Depends on how well you can hide yourself.
Okay.
In a later course, and I pass a guy, and we're coming sort of to the end of my time, and this guy, and I was saying, but you been to sea? And he says, no. He says, what? How long you been in? 14 years.
Wow.
Never been to sea.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, I've been to sea twice.
Yeah.
Etc. So you can hide away in a little sort of administration bit, or more likely a workshops environment, and you can hide yourself away in there.
Yeah.
Get to know people in the right places, in the right seat that can keep you there.
Yeah, yeah.
You're indispensable to them.
Makes
and
sense.
You can hide away till your heart's content, and you can end up never going to sea as a fleet alarm rating.
But could you do the opposite? Could you be like pick me type thing?
Yeah, I mean, you can put your hand up, press man is better than a volunteer, I was told.
Right.
And I was passing office places. Just a man. What now? Come on, show some enthusiasm. Yes, Chief. What do you want? Got the ideal job for you. Report yourself to wherever for 2 weeks, next 2 weeks, misemployment. So I ended up at the shipwright shop, for instance. The stables at Yeovilton has a had a stables. I ended up there.
Right.
The chief messman, they needed a backup chief messman. I ended up there.
Okay.
Because some guy had broken his arm, so they needed somebody else to help. So I was his legs, as he was, he would do work, he says, but I can't carry everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So I ended up there for 3 weeks.
Fair enough.
But you're still trained in your basic trade, so time you go back 3 weeks later, you're back on working on aircraft.
Working on the aircraft, okay. And what was you working on whilst you're at Yeovilton? What was the aircraft?
Well, I start off with a Wessex 5.
And that is a
helicopter.
Helicopter, okay. Just for people like me that don't know all the aircraft.
Well, your favourite film is... Sorry to interview you, but...
Yeah.
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket's a great film, yeah.
There's a helicopter towards the end of the film, I believe, flying over trees in the UK. Looks very good as Vietnam, doesn't it?
Yes. Fake Vietnam.
It's all filmed in the UK. And one of them, depending on what website you look at, is a Mark of Wessex. The Navy had Mark 1, Mark 3 and Mark 5. When I joined a Mark 5. It's a troop carrier. 16 troops, all big, hairy Royal Marines, bootnecks, as we know them in the Navy, get in the back and do all their fighting stuff from the back of the helicopter. Abseiling, being daft, leaping out, on a bit of string. What's that all about? But, they're trying to do it. So this is a troop carrying helicopter. And I start on 707 Squadron on the 26th of January.
Yeah.
It's a training squadron, and that you get trained up on that particular aircraft to learn how to maintain it. You've got 2 qualifications you need to learn. One is qualified to maintain, QM. And then the second one is qualified to sign, QS. However, the big sticking point is you have to be 17 to become QS. You're deemed not worthy before that age.
Okay.
I'm 16 and a half. So I've got 6 months to wait. So I'm in no hurry to become QM. So I just, I get boned off to do various side projects, one of which is Clean Concorde.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
It arrived in the summer. I've read that it arrived in September. I beg to differ. Because
Okay.
me and a few other guys cleaned it. And that means getting onto the wings, scrubbing brush, mop, whatever, and cleaning the aircraft. And it arrived in the summer of 76. Now, anyone who's that era, 1976 was a scorcher.
Mm.
And it lasted from June right the way through until the August, and then the heavens opened.
Okay. What was Concorde there?
It's in the Fleet Alarm Museum.
Right, but the one that arrived was retiring. Is that what you're saying?
It was one of the, was it 002 or other than that? But whatever number it was, it had all the gadgetry, all the electronics on it. They're all behind panels. But before that happened, there were all the switches, dials, cockpits were all open to misuse.
Okay.
By absent-minded people.
Right.
So while we were waiting for the fire tender of water, to one morning, we're all sort of standing. We're standing on the wings and looking for it. What time is it? It's a bit late this morning. Oh, where is it? Now, this is the Scotch, and there's a hosepipe ban worldwide across Britain. Nobody can use a hosepipe anywhere. And we were in a fire tender of water virtually every day, cleaning Concorde. I think they obviously got a cherry picker for the tail, because nobody could reach up there, but you're doing the wings, you're doing the main body, bits and pieces, those little bits of undercarriage that you can reach with your mop or brush. Like I say, walking past an office door, you're just the man. So in the meantime, we're waiting for this tender, and I end up, right, cockpit's open, let's go and have a sit down. So I sat in the left-hand seat of the Concorde that's in the Fleet Alarm Museum. I'm thinking, I'm not in the pilot seat, because the pilot seat in an aircraft is normally the right-hand seat, but the aircraft's captain sits in the left-hand seat.
Okay.
So the boss of the flight sits in that seat. So my sort of mini claim to fame is I sat in the left-hand seat of Concorde.
Nice.
And it was sold, and I was a bit gullible at the time, I think. It was sold that you were going to move it as well. No. Because, Concorde at the time was an awesome aircraft, and I can even remember it actually coming into land.
You can, you say? Yeah. Bet it sounded great.
Yeah. There was people who thought, there's too little runway for it to land. And they said it's going to come back on a low loader. Now, a low loader is called a Queen Mary for some reason, which I forget. So this is a load loader, put an aircraft on it, and it'll come in that way. No, it landed. We had enough runway.
Nice.
09 came on that one, as far as I remember. Runway, which is from the east. So the runway numbers are the compass bearings that the runway is on. So the opposite one is 270. 09 is east, 270 is the other end. So that's how it works.
Yeah.
So I remember it coming into land, and I think it was Commander Air is waving some wands at it as it's coming into land. And it's all for the camera, and there's a cartoon that was produced for the flight safety calendar of the said officer waving his wands. And there's a caption underneath. Now, Tug Wilson was an ex-chief petty officer, as far as I remember, flew out there, and he turned cartoon, and he used to do cartoons. And the flight safety calendar had a cartoon of any incidents that you might not want to happen with an aircraft. But this got wind of, there's a picture and all the rest of it, and there's a Commander of Air waving his arms so there's a caricature of the Commander Air waving his arms at the Concorde to land. And they don't really need Commander Air to wave him in. So there's a caption which I wish I could remember, but I forget, but it's quite comical, obviously. Does he want us to put our arrestor hook down? When we don't, Concorde didn't have one. So there's this famous, as it lands, it gets washed in a far end part of the airfield. It then gets transported. And I think, if I'm right, again, for those out there, that they built the hangar around the aircraft. And they thought, well, don't want to drop anything. Think there's a really great big dent in it now. So that would have been noticeable. You can't airbrush that out.
No.
Polish it out. Bit of tea-cut and that'll be fine. So that's installed and it's still there to this day.
Yeah.
Along with all the other aircraft cabs they've got in there at the time.
Yeah. I've been around that museum for quite a few times, and have walked into it, remembering how cramped it is. So with your 6 years at Yeovilton, do you just stay within Yeovilton for 6 years, or do you actually, like we would call it, like deploying out, go on exercise somewhere for kind of a period of time?
Yeah, well, I passed the QM, and that's on an individual aircraft. So you go to another aircraft, you've got to do your QM again on that particular aircraft. Okay. So it's not just blanket.
Oh, so it's individual aircraft.
It's individual aircraft. Okay. So they had a visiting aircraft section. Now, they could be QM on jets, helicopters, whatever comes in, whatever the air station deploys as an aircraft, as in an admiral's barge, what they call an admiral's barge, which is a twin-prop fixed-wing aircraft that they use to jolly jaunt between bases, places, etc., to meet appointments, for instance. And then you could have a foreign aircraft landing on, taxiing to the visiting aircraft place, and you would have to service it, fuel it, and then send it off again. There was a visiting English electric lighting. And I distinctly remember that departing. Now, this is RAF, the other lot that fly, much to our chagrin, of the fleet around, because we are older than them. We were instituted in 1909, the RAF obviously 1918. So that's our bit of chip on our shoulder, if you like. So visiting lightning, it goes to taxi, goes down a runway like stink. It is a really fast and furious aircraft and goes like that. And it just almost buried its tail into the ground as you can see down the runway. And all you can see is the main aircraft, and the tail seems to bury itself, and it just straight up like that.
Straight up. Yeah.
Zoom. And it disappeared into the clouds. Not to 60,000 feet in a rate of knots that is just really out, where did that go? I've seen various other ones, F4 Phantoms, do the same thing, but it wasn't the same, admittedly, as that first one that you see.
Yeah.
That's stuck in the mind. But you see other ones, and they do it's going to bury his arse, the way it goes. Because they're rolling down the runway, full afterburners on, so that's neat jet fuel, into the exhaust, it ignites, and that's what gives you the kick up the backside to go to twice the Mach speed of sound. So So I remember that.
Yeah. So it sounded like there was a lot of aircraft that you got
to see.
Taught on. You got a lot of stuff under your belt to work on your trade as such.
Yeah.
What about rank? Are you in that 6 years? Are you staying the initial rank? And actually, I don't know what that is. What is your initial rank when you come out?
When I started, I was a junior electrical mechanic air.
Okay.
The L on the overalls to signify I'm an electrician.
Yeah.
I'm learning my trade on Wessex 5. After 6 months, they decide I'm surplus to requirements.
Oh, really? Okay.
As in, they're overborne with electricians. They've got too many. I get palmed off onto a Naval Aircraft Support Unit, NASU, which is just another hangar a few doors up. So I go from 24 hours rotation watch system to days. So Monday to Friday, 8 till 5, and that's me. I'm done for the day. No weekends. So you think, I've got weekends free, blah, blah, blah. Great. But the 24 about system allowed you to do things when you weren't working. So, for instance, first day you started, say it's 7:30 until 12 noon. You're done. The next watch comes on at 12 noon and finishes at the end of night flying. So 11 o'clock, but it could be midnight, it could be a little bit later the next morning. And then you're in at 7:30. So you're like that, you're looking through very tired eyes. And I've done it a couple of times, not very many, but you're looking through tired eyes and you're trying to work an aircraft. Not the best idea, I would say, and then you come on next day at 12, and that's where you start again. So you do the 12, you do the late shift all the way through until night flying finishes. If it's during the winter, they might start at 6 because it gets dark quite quickly, and they're finished by 8. You're up to by 9. If nothing's unserviceable, US, you finish up, give them all a wipe to protect the aircraft surface, and then you're done, away home. You're away back to your mess. It's time for bed, or down the bar, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So what you I think you were going down the route of rank. So did that change when you moved to a different department? Or?
So I remained a junior electromechanic air up until I was 17 and a half.
Right.
And then I go electrical mechanic air class 2.
Okay. So then the classes get added to it.
Yeah.
Very complicated.
There's not a great deal of difference. You're just expected to know more.
Okay.
You get a little star above your 4 electrical flashes.
Right.
To say, wait one. That's when the next class comes in. You don't get one initially, but when you go electrical mechanic first class, you get the star.
Okay.
So I jumped.
Right.
And that happened, which my crib sheet is. Excuse me. I go electrical mechanic air first class in 78.
Okay. So a few years under your belt.
So you're still learning, you're still training, but as the milestone comes, they're getting a little bit extra. You get, I got a compliment billet pay around about the time I turned 18. 17 and a half, sorry, because I did not exercise my option to leave. So you get a little backhander to keep you right and keep you interested. So you get a financial. So I get to the payoff. And this is, come back, you're cash in hand up until they turn banking and then monthly paid. But you're fortnightly paid, cash in hand. All through my initial training, all through getting up to and on including 707 Squadron. So I'm still cash in hand. You have an ID card in one hand, salute with the other hand, and your officer of the day of the squadron places your funds in your hand. So, and you say, "Thank you very much, sir," and you walk out. So you're all cash in hand. I'm £22 a fortnight.
Wow.
Back in 75 and even later. And one time I get my money and it's more. I'm thinking, there's a mistake. Something wrong here. So I get out the paycheck, I open it out, and there's a big long A4 type thing, and there's all sorts of weird and wonderful. And I look at the bottom, it's £25 odds. Yeah, that mark thing. I look up the top, it's not me. Like it's somebody else's pay.
Oh dear.
So I have to fight my way back into the office that they're holding the pay in, holding the pay issue in, and I'm pushing past guys and they're saying, "What's your game? Get to the fucking back of the queue," and all the rest of it. So, and I have to shout out, "Mark, what are you doing back here? McKeachan, what are you doing back in here?" And I'm saying, "Well, I've got the wrong pay." "Oh, right, that's it. Shove everyone outside, shut the door." So I hand back the pay and they look at it and say, "That's not you, is it?" So they look round, they find it, £22. Well, that makes more sense. Right, okay. Away I go. So this gets passed on to the juniors division at the time. I was still a junior, I think, at the time. And they come and say, "Well done, Matt. Great for being honest." I said, "Yeah, fair enough." No thing. I said, "Well, at the end of the day, when they come to the box, because it was in a wooden box, they're all sort of sorted out in alphabetical order, sorry, and they come to mine, there's what we doing with him? He's already been in, we know he's been in. We've still got his pay here."
Yeah.
And then there's one guy who's not got anything.
Get found out in the end. Yeah.
Very, very, very quickly. And next thing you know, you are marched up to in front of the Master at Arms and to explain yourself.
Yeah.
Why you've been done for theft.
Yeah.
Basically.
That's good. That's good that you had that kind of like honesty about you.
Well, as I say, it was a no-brain situation. It was if I had retained it and ran away and spent it,
Absolutely.
they would have said, "That's you, no pay. You spent it all."
Yeah.
And then you face a charge of theft. I still think they would do you.
Yeah.
And you end up under punishment, and your favourite was cleaning the cannons outside the guardroom, the brass cannons. So I never did that. I only got caught once, and that was at Ganges.
Yeah.
Sort of backtrack slightly. I was late for what they call a duty watch muster, and you're a fire party. Basically, if anything snags happens, or there's you're supposed to at least fight the fire until the fire brigade turn up, or do any tasks that need doing. There's a bit of litter here, there, and everywhere, like duty watch muster, and you go litter picking, perhaps. Every little jobs like that. But normally, it's just to teach you to be there, fully booted and spurred, in your working clothes, which is a light blue shirt, navy blue trousers, beret, all the rest of it. And I was late, I just have to say. And they changed, in my defence, they changed the location of the duty watch muster. And I went to the old place, and they'd redone it to the usual place. And I'd forgotten the date and time, especially the date that it changed back to the original location. So I'm looking up, where the hell's the duty watch muster? Looking out my mess, backwards and forwards. And then I take a walk up the office, and it appears I'm late for our duty watch muster, sir. He says, right, 2 days extra work. So I got cleaning toilets, sweeping up, things like that. So I learned never to be late.
No.
You learn
even
that.
To this day.
Yeah.
Even to this day.
Yeah. So
great stuff. So after Yeovilton, where do you head to next? Is it to do with your trade, or are you kind of choosing where you want to go?
Well, up until 82, I was at Yeovilton. I'm doing various jobs. I'm on this naval aircraft support unit, and I go from Wessex 5 to Wessex 1. And it's a troop carrier to a rescue helicopter, because it's painted fluorescent red, and it's off one of the big carriers at the time. And I never become qualified to maintain on it. All the time I'm on it. You're doing deep work to clear pulled rivets, not you personally, but the deep maintenance is to strip everything out, clean everything, de-rust it, de-corrode it, and then reservice it, and then it flies again. So I do a certain amount of time, months on this Wessex 1, and then suddenly I get another call, you're going to Lynx helicopters. And that's in a neighbouring hangar on Air Station Yeovilton. And this is a new aircraft, or relatively new aircraft, a couple of years old. It's done an intensive flying trials period, IFTU, and it's now deemed fit for service. Still has the odd teething problem, and no doubt. It's an all-metric aircraft, but nobody asked Rolls-Royce. They supply the engines. They're all across the flats dimensions, so not metric. So you have to have a quarter air socket in the box. So you've got to remember. And initially, I don't think they were always there. So you had to go to stores, get to another support toolbox just to get this little socket so you could work on the actual engine.
Okay.
You're doing that. One of the first jobs I do when I start Lynx, I'm 3 weeks late by this time, because I mentioned the chief messman previously. I end up misemployed for 3 weeks. So I turn up 3 weeks late to join 702 Squadron, as it was, the training squadron. And I start my sort of first shift, or first few shifts, first few days. You're on a watch-keeping system, so you're doing this 24 about thing, starting at 12, finishing late, starting 7:30 the next morning, finish at lunchtime. So you got the next 24 hours to do as you please. And that's great. So you can do your washing, your laundry, everything that you want. You got time. You can go in to the pubs if you're old enough. I wasn't. So quite so. And another backstory, if we can hop back just for 1 second. I got caught underage drinking when I was a junior.
Okay.
So I'm in the main club, the Heron Club, and there's two bars on Yeovilton at the time. The main Heron Club, where there's a disco bar, etc. And then there's a small men's bar, they call. But yes, Wrens could go in, much to the detriment of old Vic, the barman behind the counter. And he didn't suffer fools gladly. But I got on with him all right. So that was my main bar once I was 18. But occasionally, before that, I used to go into the main bar. And I got caught by a committee club member, which is another leading hand or a rating who's got a job as watching for underage drinkers. And I got caught. So I get ID card. He takes my details. Right, report yourself to the Master at Arms next morning, 8 o'clock sharp. I never did. And I'm still waiting for the punishment.
Right.
No one caught me. And I kept waiting for the pipe or the phone call going, what you done? You got to go and see the Master at Arms, who's the lead prosecutor, if you like, of naval discipline. And he'll decide what charges you get to what misdemeanour you may or may not have done, and whether you have mitigating circumstances to not get punishment. So I don't go and see him. I don't get punished. I get away with it. I'm quite happy, but I have got a squeaky bum for quite a number of years thinking I'm going to get caught. And it's going to look bad because I didn't admit it months before. After a few months, you think, yeah, I probably winged it. I'm okay. But so I managed to escape. So I'm never charged other than 2 days extra work at Ganges. So I joined 702. One of the first jobs I do, I cook it up. It's got a rear aft equipment bay underneath just before the tail cone on a Lynx. You've got an aft equipment bay, and it's a drop-down sort of swing panel up in there. Right, Mac, he says, take those two out on the tray. Don't do anything else. Just take that out for access, so they could see what mistakes are or anything untoward underneath this tray. Mm-hmm. And there's 2 units, gyros, and there's 3 bits to undo, plus a central spigot that it sits on. And the clips are quite easy. Slide out, rotate, brilliant. Think, great, I can do this. Gets the split pin out the spigot, not fully noticing a little metal collar. So that goes ping and disappears. And I'm left with the tray of the 2 units thinking, I've got to tell some bugger. I've just cocked it up and I've lost. And I look, and best's part, and I couldn't find it. The various other people come up and, well, you lost, Mac. We've heard you've lost something. So the road sweeper outside could come along. They would hear about it. Everyone going past would hear about you've lost something. So everyone coming past from other aircraft have not had anything to do with that aircraft you've been on, that cab. They're coming up, Mac, I've heard you lost it. You found it yet? So your name is mud for days on end. So eventually it's found, it's located, the entries that you have to make, lost part, me, I have to own up to it. It's found, it's okay, fine. But the first job you do, it's not how you want to go.
No. So with those links, that's nearer the end of your time at Yeovilton.
Yeah.
Do you go off and do anything with the links, or are you doing all of that work at Yeovilton?
Up until you're doing training, I'm learning to work on the links, so I go back to Daedalus.
Okay, so you're going back to that training place.
To find out how to work the aircraft.
Yeah.
The systems are, because I've got to learn 2 more trades. On basic electrics, I've got to learn radio and radar, because it's a radar aircraft capable, and I've got to learn about guns and bombs
as well. Yeah.
Not to the same degree as a fully trained up weapons guy or a fully trained up radio mechanic. They have more in depth, and they're expected to know more in depth.
Yeah.
You, as a what they call triple trader, which is now called avionics, because you cover all things that way, due to the technology, because there's so many integrated systems. So you've got to learn that way. So I learn over the time, and I become qualified to maintain in each trade.
Yeah.
So I'm already electrics. That's done within 3 months or so, and then the radio mechanic follows the month after, and then the weapons follow the month after that or so. Again, you're not needed to learn it all, and it's a practical audio walk around an aircraft, and I'll say, what's that?
Yeah.
What's this? Where are such and such? No, don't show me. Tell me where they are. So you've got to tell them, well, there are 2 units, they're just inside that, and there they are there, front, both sides, for whatever.
Fair enough, yeah. And then you're back there and you're doing all the link stuff.
Yeah.
And like I say, so are you staying there, or do you get sent off to do some work?
Eventually, once I'm fully triple trade,
yeah.
They decide that you're fit for a small ship's flight.
Okay, what does that mean? You're going on a ship? It sounds like you're going on a ship.
Yeah.
Okay.
With an individual helicopter to maintain and use with the ship itself. So whilst you are training, you're doing all the weapons drills.
Mm-hmm.
So it's countless running in and out of a rotor disc, which is normally at the start, it's all done. So you're taught how to do it individually, what your position is, what you're actually physically doing. So if you're carrying in equipment, like a hoist, and something to attach how do I describe this? A framework that you attach the hoist to, and then that dangles a cable, metal rod cable, and that goes into the weapon itself slot, and then that lowers or raises the weapon to the aircraft carrier. And then it's pinned, and you form a geometric lock by twisting a handle from that to that, basically.
Okay, yeah.
And that forms a lock, and then the weapon is deemed okay until that pin is withdrawn, and then it can be released, either jettisoned or released live.
Nice.
So you're doing all these weapon drills, you're doing it in slow time, and then putting air defenders on, and you're not allowed to talk. And then you do it for real. Engine, rotors going, so it's all noisy, and you're shouting if you can, try to be heard. Such and such is in the wrong place, or such and such is wrong, and you have to sort of readjust. But normally you can do it once you're well drilled, 3 minutes.
Okay, that's cool.
And you're timed when you're on a small ship flight, on a flight deck, you're timed to make sure that you are up to speed.
Yeah.
And any problems. So you're up against the other crew on the other side. I was always port side, they were always the other side, and we were always slower. Not because of me, particularly, but the senior chief in charge, or the senior mate in charge, who's doing the weapon loading, is not particularly, he's maybe a mechanical trade, so he's more airframes, engines. He's maybe an artificer, so he's well-trained, highly-trained in his group, but playing with guns and bombs, he doesn't really want to do that. So he's a bit slower, a bit more, so you have to help him. You're doing various bits and pieces. You're putting arming wires at the location, and then he's shortening that arming wire.
Mm.
So it's neat, tidy, and then when the weapons release a torpedo, all the gear comes off, and the weapon goes in clean. So it's quite sort of, and there's various bits. There's a parachute to attach, lanyard to attach, and there's an oak cone to take off. So I'm taking all the gear off, running away. All the gear, because you're moving on a ship, has to be secured, so it has to be lashed down and kept in place. The gear the equipment that you use goes into the trolley that the torpedoes say come out of, and then I go back in and I help the guy to actually arm, or preparations to arm the weapon. And now it's a testing weapon. It's a training weapon, so it's not live. One weapon we did do live much later in my career was a depth charge, but you can fit depth charge, and that's slightly different because you can manhandle that.
Okay.
But it's got a really heavy front end.
Yeah. So just trying to get to the point where you actually head off to do your like real life thing. So you've done the training, you're qualified. What's the place you're going? The ship you're going on to make it real?
Yeah. Well, I start on HMS Sirius flight.
Sirius.
Oh,
is it flight at the end? Sirius flight.
Flight. Yeah.
Okay.
You get a flight number. It's a 3-digit normally number, but HMS Sirius is your flight destination. If you came off that ship, and the ship went into refit, you come off that, you would be marked by the 3 number, and then that flight could be on any other ship that needs one, and then you become that ship's flight. So you rebrand your helicopter from Sirius to say Glasgow or Glamorgan or whatever ship it is.
Really?
You go back on and just rebadge it, change the side number on the door, and you become that small ship's flight.
Oh, interesting. I thought you'd have like the ship and its aircraft, but the aircraft go and join it for a period of time.
Yeah, you embark and disembark, because it goes into refit, it goes into dockyard. What's use of the cab being on board at that time? So you disembark. So you, regular as clockwork, come back to your parent air station.
Okay.
At that time, was Yeovilton.
Right.
So I joined the small ships flight. You're doing loads of training. You're doing loads of weapon loads. And in the dark, in the daylight, you're flying daily. They're doing various tasks and training of their own. So you're doing winching off the hoist.
Okay.
So one of the crew has to volunteer to be the winch weight normally.
Really?
And then you've got one of the guys is a trained air crewman. So he is on the range of the winch to pick you up. I never volunteered to be the winch weight or the idiot on going up and down. Not for me, sorry. Not my style. But one of the other guys would do that, or we get willing volunteers off the parent squadron. And you would do the winch training, you would do the weapon loading, you would do cargo lifting. So there's a unit underneath the helicopter which you attach a net to, or a cargo strop, and it leads that to a net, and then you put whatever you need in cargo-wise, that goes into the net, winch it up, and away it goes. And that normally does a circuit, comes back on, drops the winch off, the weight off, and then they readjust the load, or you say, right, it goes around the circuit, comes back 5 minutes later, and you do the same thing again. But you've got to watch for static electricity build-up, so you've got what they call the shepherd's crook. You attach it, that earths any static electricity, because it can give you a little tingle.
I bet.
If it builds up. Wessex 5s were quite a thing for doing that, and they built up a lot of static. And when you go dink, touch things, you can go and you jump back.
Yeah.
Because it stings.
Yeah.
Not so much on a lynx, because it's part fiberglass, part metal. So you attach it and it drops off, and then you're doing that continually. Then of course you embark on the ship. The helicopter's not there, the cab's not there. You go into the hangar and it's a tip. There's gear everywhere. It's not yours. Nothing to do with the hangar. Nothing to do with the flight. You got to get rid of it. So you phone up the relative department and you say, you've got to remove it. The senior maintenance rating says, SMR, says you need to get rid of it. Otherwise, we'll float test it. And that means splash.
Chuck it over the side.
Yeah, that's a threat. So somebody, if it's important equipment and it's expensive, has signed on the dotted line to accept that. So if that goes missing, it's big money. So, and a fine. So you clear the hangar, you get sail. We're in Plymouth as our naval base, and you sit outside there, and the first thing you notice, just outside the harbour, there's something wrong with the seabed, I think, from what I can remember somebody said, and it makes the water very rough. So you're just out of harbour, you've never been to sea very much. I had a few times as a school kid with my elder brothers gone to sea. So I've experienced a little bit, but you go across this and it's quite a long, I can't remember how long you are over this bit of rough seabed, but the water's quite choppy for a little while, and then you get out a bit into the channel and it's maybe windy, it's maybe that time of year, and it's a bit rough. So you're trying to find your sea legs, as well as try to cope with all the jobs you've got to do, because there's a whole new ball game. You've already learnt where you sleep, where you eat, and where you work. That's the 3 priorities at the time. The rest of the ships, where's that then? Is that up the pointy end or down the blunt end? And it winds the ship's company up like something chronic. Is that upstairs or downstairs? It's up a ladder. No, it's not. Something else. A ladder goes like that, which we had from the 2-deck, which is the deck below the weather deck or the upper deck on a ship. That's 1 deck. The next one down's 2. The next one down's 3, and so on. So you're on 2-deck, and that's a ladder to the hangar. That's a ladder. Everything else is a set of stairs. And it winds them up something chronic. They don't see the joke that you think. And there's obviously lots of banter between the general service, the ship's company, and us fleet ram guys.
Yeah.
Or nowadays girls as well. But that back in the day, Wrens didn't go to sea.
Fair.
The odd exception, I'm not ruling out, but it was all guys. So you're in a mess deck, 30 blokes, just about. We're in 3 Echo Zulu mess, which denotes how far you are in that particular compartment spaces from the next one, and it denotes whether the Zulu means the last one in that section, and then the next section takes over. It's all complicated when you're trying to learn where you work, where you sleep, and where you eat.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. How long was you on that for?
14 months.
Oh, really? Wow.
1979. April 79 to August 80.
Okay. So that's like, in some ways, that's like a deployment. Your main base is Yeovilton.
Yeah.
And that's like a deployment in some ways. Did you actually head out, or did you stay within the UK?
You normally do local visits to various ports, places. We went to Hull for a long weekend, I think, and you entertain the locals by having ship open to visitors. So that involves normally the cab going out of the hangar, because it normally goes nose in first, spinning it 180 degrees, putting the tail in first, and having the nose, and then any dummy weapons sitting tied alongside it. Excuse me. And then the Joe public comes up. Oh, what's this then? Helicopter. Lynx helicopter. What does it do? How fast can you do it? What does it fly?
Yeah.
Etc. Etc. So you get all the questions of the day. How long does it take you to get it from there to there flying? 40 minutes? Well, that's too long. People could drown by then. Well, we could probably do it quicker, but from standing start to out, they're allowed 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So you've got preparations for the aircraft going flying, what particular thing it's doing. You've got to make sure it's got the right fuel in it. The fuel hose and the fuel point is right on right-hand side of the hangar, but starboard side, if I'm being pedantic, that's the right-hand side of the ship. So the fueling point's right at the hangar door. That goes up, hand wheel, no just press the button. It's a hand wheel, and it takes ages because the gauge gearing on it is really poor. So 3 or 4 tons and it goes up about that much, it seems.
Yeah.
And you are knackered by the time you've done it. All the way to the top. The cab goes out, and the Sirius was a Leander class frigate. So it's quite small and quite distinctive, because where the upper deck goes from normal, it's pretty flat, and then it takes a little skip, sort of slanted up towards the sharp end, the forecastle, if you like to be accurate. But that goes up to the sharp end, and the hangars are obviously at the tail, at the stern end. We shove the aircraft out onto the flight deck. There is a hydraulic clamp, for whatever better word, and that gets put electrics on, push a button, and that clamps to a big steel grid in the flight deck, and that supposedly keeps the aircraft on deck if your ship's manoeuvring, turning, whatever. Doesn't always work, because that unit has a shear bolt in it, and if the shear bolt succeeded, what you get is a little part in the deck, and then the rest of it's in the helicopter, and if worst case scenario, sploosh.
Okay.
So we have 3 winches on the Under Sirius, and that's about it. So we have to, what they call hand over hand lashings every time we move it in and out. Other than when it's alongside a ship home to visitors, then we can move it, we can just shove it, or we can use the winches and move it out, move it in quite merrily. But at sea, bit of rough, you've got 3 winches, 1 at the nose, 1 at either undercarriage, because it's a rear double and a single at the front, and with 2 wheels at the front, 2 and 1 each at the back, and you attach the wires, and then you do webbing lashings, and they're fixed on the deck, what they call a ring bolt. So it's a little ring of metal, it flips up, you attach the one end, and then you attach the other end to a strong point on the cab. So, bit of ruffers. Now this is an extreme example, if you like. So we're moving the cab inside, and the ship tilts to starboard. So it goes from straight ahead, this is nose, tail, and it's going like that. And you're on a hand lashing. Now the hand lashing, you've got 1 point there, and you'll have another one set at another distance to another ring bolt. So as you run out of webbing on one clamp, you take that one off and you put another one on. And then that's how it works. That's how you feed your way up. If you run out of, before getting the webbing off, because you have to go get some slack in it and then take the hook off that end from the aircraft. If you don't do it, it reaches its point and you say, stop! And then you got to unroll it back and take the one unit off, get the net, and then you can start again. If you get my drift. So we're doing this, and the cab the ship's tilting, and it reaches a point of, well, I'm going, whether you like it or not. And 4 ton of aircraft goes like that, slides.
Just slides on the bay.
Slides on the wheels,
wow,
away from me. Now, the only thing that stopped it were where the fueling point is, and it could have crashed into that, but there's a raised lip, 4 or 5 inches tall, say, and that stops any fuel spillages escaping if there's a fuel leak with the fueling unit. So it stops when it bounces off of that. So the first bit is the senior maintenance and rank shouting, is everyone all right? Is everyone all right? So fortunately, of course, I'm on the port side. There's a guy on the starboard side doing exactly the same I'm doing, putting one lashing on, taking another one off, putting one lashing on, taking another one off. And he's miraculously jumped out of the way. And he says, yeah, I'm fine. So then there's an inquest. We got a helicopter where it shouldn't be, and we get the ship eventually tilts flat, We get on the blower to the phone to the bridge and say, what the hell just happened? The cab's been pranged. So half the world descends upon from captain skipper downwards to the hangar to find out what the hell's gone wrong. So up above, on a mezzanine level, you've got various bits of equipment. And just as it happened, right opposite where the cab went in, there's an overload tank, an extra fuel tank, which you can fit internally in the cabin to extend the range of the cab's flight from maybe 2.5 hours, say, up to anything up to about 4, maybe 4 hours or more. So the blade that's folded on that side dinks into the fuel tank. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is obviously you've got to check the blade. So that means we've got to change it. And we've been late night flying. And so it's late at night. We've been on from 8 o'clock that morning. 18-hour days on a small ship flight are not unusual, not regular, too regular, but they're not uncommon. And there's just 7 of you. I qualified that. We had an extra guy, an extra petty officer. So we had 8. So we were effectively, according to the ship, overmanned. So we get the cab out the way. We see the dent is there, but it's not hold the fuel tank. Breathe a sigh of relief, blah, blah, blah. Don't have that to swap or get a new one. No, I maybe think we did. We did exchange it at a later date. We weren't going to use it anytime soon, so it was put on the back burner. So we have to change the blade at sea. We do that. We get it all back to bed. And, of course, the time's just sailed on. So it's very late at night when we finally, and then up the next morning to start all over again. And then you've got to check it, that the blade is true, so it's in track. So rather than have all blades at various different heights, it's all got to be, because otherwise it'll set up a very poor, very extreme vibration. So you've got to blade track it, and then you've got ground test. And the first thing is when you engage the rotors for the first time, because it'll show up then. If the cab's bouncing, and it's shut it down, check everything's okay, reset some things, and then try again. Normally, it's you've done all the previous checks, so it's virtually, it'll run true. And then you might have to make slight adjustments just to get it in to track. So you do little sort of adjustments to the length of one rod, and that brings the blade down or up as required. Yeah. So there's this 4-ton about. So there's a signal goes off to say, this is what happened, this is what we've done, it's now tracked, it's now serviceable, we're now operational again. We did cast aspersions who was driving the ship at the time, as in not the lad who was actually steering, but the officer of the watch who was actually saying left a bit, right a bit, down a bit, and hang a left here, as he did, to some extent, port 20, whatever he said, with the cab half in and half out the hangar. And normally you have to wait. We tell them, we're in, we're locked down, we're chained, you can do what you like now. And once it's down on 8 chain lashings, that's you. Extreme weather, it's 10. As many as you can put on. And then everything in the hangar has to be tied down, put away, locked away. Bay of Biscay, for instance. Yeah. Force 10.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah. So
a lot of detail.
That was a rare instance. That can happen, but it never happened again, because normally the ship's on the ball, but this night, for whatever reason, they weren't.
Sometimes it
happens,
right?
And that's what happens. 4-ton of aircraft goes away from it, and you think, well, why didn't I put the clamp on? Well, it's gone, and you think, what the hell's happening? And by the time you go, shit, and pull the handle down to clamp it, not that it would have stopped it probably anyway, the cab's moved.
Yeah.
And it's all very slow motion. As you're moving, and then the cab moves. And I think, shit, that seemed like minutes. I could have done something. But when you reveal seconds.
Yeah.
Very, very small seconds. So.
Yeah, lots of little things that can change the trajectory, I say.